Dr. Elena Vasquez suppressed a sigh, feeling the weight of her responsibility as she adjusted her translator earpiece yet again. The cacophony of alien languages reverberating through the massive conference hall was giving her a headache, reminding her acutely of her distance from Earth. As Earth's representative to the Galactic Scientific Council, she was accustomed to standing out, but today felt especially isolating. Beyond the hall's panoramic windows, the galactic hub loomed, a vast space station orbiting a neutral star system. Hundreds of alien spacecraft dotted the starscape, a testament to the diversity of the gathered delegates. Elena's gaze wandered to the Earth Alliance cruiser station nearby, its sleek, predatory lines both reassuring and anxiety-inducing, a symbol of humanity's newfound role in the galactic community and the weight of their obligations. Today's agenda centered on the classification of habitable worlds and the establishment of universal safety protocols for interspecies exploration. Elena braced herself for a lengthy session, possibly extending into the artificial night of this construct. A tall, willowy creature resembling a cross between a praying mantis and a GFF tapped the lectern with one of its spindly appendages. The universal translator in Elena's ear crackled to life, calibrating to the speaker. "Esteemed colleagues," the alien began, its voice like wind chimes in Elena's ear, "I, High Counselor Zix Lorp of the Arachnid Confederation, call this meeting to order. Today, we discuss the pressing matter of galactic exploration safety." Suppressing a snort, Elena earned a curious look from the gelatinous blob seated beside her. If only they knew what safety truly meant to a human. Zix Lorp continued, its multiple limbs gesturing in what Elena presumed was an important arachnid gesture. "Our first order of business is to review the proposed classification system for potentially habitable worlds, starting with Class 1, the most hospitable worlds." "Excuse me, High Counselor," Elena interrupted, raising her hand. The entire hall fell silent, alien eyes or sensory organs fixating on the human, some curious, others with disdain. Elena was accustomed to both reactions by now. "I believe we should begin by establishing a baseline. What exactly do we consider habitable?" A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Zix Lorp's antenna twitched in annoyance, a gesture Elena had learned to recognize. "Dr. Vasquez," Zix Lorp said curtly, "we have already established that habitable refers to worlds capable of supporting carbon-based life forms without extensive artificial life support systems. This was agreed upon in the preliminary meetings, which you attended." Elena nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "I understand that, High Counselor. I was present for those discussions. However, I believe our definitions of extensive may differ significantly. What one species considers a minor inconvenience, another might view as an insurmountable obstacle." A bulbous creature to Elena's left, a blobby from the methane seas of Zaris Prime, burbled something that her translator rendered as, "The human has a point. Their world is unique." The translation couldn't quite capture the mix of awe and horror in the blobby's tone, but Elena got the gist. Zix Lorp's compound eyes narrowed, focusing all four of them on Elena. She met its gaze steadily, years of diplomatic training guiding her response. "Very well, Dr. Vasquez. Perhaps you would care to elaborate on what humans consider habitable? Your perspective may prove valuable to our discussions." Elena stood, smoothing down her Regulation Earth Alliance uniform, a dark blue fabric designed for professionalism and practicality across various environments. Amidst the sea of alien delegates, it felt comfortingly familiar. Textures and colors were certainly of interest, but for now, Elena was focused on addressing the High Counselor's query. She took a moment to gather her thoughts before responding. "What's the gravity range you're considering for Class 1 worlds?" she asked. A holographic display flickered to life above the center of the hall, showing a chart of gravitational ranges. Alien scripts appeared and shifted as Elena's translator worked to convert them into something comprehensible. Zix Lorp, one of the delegates, pointed to the lower end of the scale with a delicate limb. Class 1 worlds have a gravity range of 0.8 to 1.2 galactic standard, the High Counselor explained. This range is considered comfortable for the majority of known sapient species. Elena nodded, already thinking ahead. "And what about the temperature range you're proposing for Class 1? Another chart appeared, this one displaying temperature scales in various alien measurement systems. Elena's eyes quickly found the Celsius scale, a small victory for human scientific influence in the galactic community. "For Class 1, we propose a range of 0 to 30 degrees Celsius, Zix Lorp said, its tone suggesting this range was generous. This allows for some climate variation while remaining comfortable for most carbon-based life forms." Elena couldn't help but chuckle, causing several nearby aliens to flinch at the unusual sound of human laughter. She quickly composed herself, not wishing to offend. I see, she said, striving to keep her tone neutral. And what about atmospheric composition? I assume you have standards for that as well? Zixlorp waved a limb dismissively, clearly growing impatient. Standard oxygen-nitrogen mix, of course, with trace amounts of other non-toxic gases. Dr. Vasquez, while I appreciate your thoroughness, these are all standard parameters that have been used for centuries. Is there a specific point to these questions? Elena took a deep breath, bracing herself for the reaction she knew was coming. High Counselor, esteemed colleagues, she began, her voice carrying across the hushed hall. I'm afraid I must inform you that, according to these standards, Earth, humanity's home world, would not qualify as habitable. In fact, it wouldn't even come close. The hall erupted in a cacophony of alien voices. Some delegates leapt to their feet, while others engaged in rapid conversations with their neighbors. A few appeared to be calling for order, while others demanded Elena's immediate removal from the council. Elena waited patiently as Zixlorp worked to restore order, which took several minutes and involved some kind of sonic dampening field. The sudden silence that followed was almost as jarring as the noise had been, and Elena found herself missing the familiar sounds of Earth, the rustle of wind through trees, the distant rumble of thunder, and even the mundane hum of human machinery. When silence finally fell, Zixlorp turned all four of its eyes toward Elena, its antennae perfectly still, a sign she had learned to interpret as intense focus. Explain, Zixlorp said simply, its voice carrying an authority that silenced even the most agitated delegates. Elena nodded, grateful for the chance to elaborate. Thank you, High Counselor. I'll do my best to explain Earth's unique nature and why it challenges our current classification system. She took a moment to gather her thoughts, acutely aware of the hundreds of alien eyes fixed on her. This was a crucial moment, not just for her but for humanity's place in the galactic community. Earth's gravity is approximately 9.8 meters per square second, which I believe translates to about 1.6 times your galactic standard, Elena began. This alone would disqualify it from your Class 1 category and even from several categories above that. A murmur went through the crowd, but Zixlorp raised a limb for silence. Elena continued, our temperature range is far more extreme than what you've proposed for Class 1. We regularly experience temperatures below freezing and above 40 degrees Celsius in many parts of our world. Some regions can see temperatures as low as 50 degrees Kelvin or as high as 50 degrees D. She paused, letting the information sink in. As for atmospheric composition, Elena continued, her voice steady despite the growing unease in the room, Earth's atmosphere contains significant amounts of what many species would consider toxic gases, carbon dioxide, methane, and ozone, to name a few. Not to mention the wide variety of airborne particulates. The collective gasp that swept through the audience was palpable. Elena had to fight the urge to roll her eyes. If they thought this was alarming, they were in for a shock with the rest of her presentation. But she decided to build up the suspense. That's just the beginning, Elena said, warming up to her topic. Earth is home to active tectonic plates that cause frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. We experience massive storms capable of flattening entire cities, floods that can submerge vast expanses of land, and droughts that can transform fertile regions into arid deserts. She glanced around the room, observing the horrified expressions on many alien faces. Elena knew it was essential for these beings to understand Earth thoroughly if they were to grasp humanity's resilience. And let's not overlook our biology, she continued. Earth is teeming with life forms that would be considered extraordinarily dangerous by galactic standards. We have predators capable of taking down creatures many times their size, plants that can kill with a single touch, and microorganisms that can decimate entire populations. The silence in the hall was deafening. Elena could almost hear the gears turning in hundreds of alien minds as they struggled to process this information. She allowed the weight of her words to settle over the assembly, then waited. Finally, a small, furry creature at the back of the hall raised what appeared to be a tentacle. Its voice, when translated, was high-pitched and trembling. If all this is true, it squeaked, how do humans survive on such a world? Elena's smile was not a pleasant one. She noticed several nearby aliens flinch slightly. We adapt, she said simply. We've evolved to thrive in these conditions. In fact, many humans actively seek out even more extreme environments for recreation. We climb mountains, dive into the deepest oceans, and explore the harshest deserts. The furry alien emitted a sound that Elena's translator couldn't even interpret. She suspected it might have fainted, as several of its companions clustered around it in apparent concern. Zixlorp and two notable delegates, were vibrating so rapidly they were almost a blur. When Zixlorp spoke, its usually melodious voice was strained. Dr. Vasquez, are you suggesting we need to reconsider our classification system? Elena nodded, her expression serious. I believe that would be wise. Earth is currently classified as a Class 12 death world, but considering what I've shared and other factors I haven't yet mentioned, I'd argue that it should be at least a Class 13, possibly even Class 14. The hall erupted into chaos once more. Delegates shouted, gesticulated wildly, and in some cases, changed colors rapidly. Elena sat down, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and weariness. It was going to be a very long conference. As the noise around her reached a fever pitch, Elena couldn't help but smile to herself. If they were this shocked by Earth's current classification, they were in for even more surprises when they learned about humanity's plans for terraforming Mars. Eventually, Zixlorp managed to restore order, though its limbs trembled slightly, whether from exertion or shock, Elena couldn't tell. Dr. Vasquez, the High Counselor, said, its voice now tinged with respect, I believe we will need a more comprehensive briefing on Earth and its conditions. Would you be willing to provide a detailed presentation to the Council? Elena nodded, already mentally preparing her slides. Of course, High Counselor. I'd be happy to enlighten the Council on the realities of Earth. However, I should warn you that some of what I have to share might be disturbing to certain species. A ripple of unease swept through the crowd, but Zixlorp stood firm. We must have this information if we are to accurately classify worlds and ensure the safety of all galactic citizens. Please proceed, Dr. Vasquez. Elena stood again and made her way to the central podium. As she walked, she reflected on the unusual path that had brought her here. Growing up in the highlands of Peru, she had never imagined she'd one day be explaining the dangers of her home world to a group of extraterrestrials. Life, it seemed, had a way of surprising you, whether you were human or alien. Reaching the podium, Elena interfaced her personal data device with the holographic projector. A three-dimensional image of Earth sprang to life above the assembly, slowly rotating to reveal its familiar continents and vast oceans. Elena began her presentation with a clear and commanding voice that resonated through the hall. What you see before you is Earth, the third planet from our sun and the home world of humanity. From this vantage point, it might seem tranquil, but I assure you, appearances can be deceptive. With a sweeping gesture, Elena zoomed in on a section of the Pacific Ocean. The image shifted to reveal a massive, swirling storm system. This phenomenon is known as a hurricane or typhoon, she continued. These storms can span hundreds of kilometers and generate winds exceeding 250 kilometers per hour, causing catastrophic damage to coastal areas. They are just one example of Earth's extreme weather patterns. As Elena spoke, some alien delegates showed visible distress, while others leaned in, captivated by the display. Elena then refocused the image to highlight the Ring of Fire, a region renowned for its frequent volcanic eruptions and earthquakes due to tectonic activity. Eruptions here can release ash and gases into the atmosphere, impacting global climate, and earthquakes can devastate entire cities, she explained. Noticing the horror on some faces, Elena paused briefly. Yet, despite these dangers, humans have built some of our largest cities in these very regions. We've developed construction techniques to withstand these forces and systems to predict and mitigate natural disasters. This adaptability is a key part of our species' survival. Elena then showcased Earth's diverse ecosystems, ranging from the intense heat of the Sahara Desert to the icy expanse of Antarctica, from the crushing depths of the Mariana Trench to the thin air of the Himalayas. As you can see, she said with evident pride, Earth encompasses a vast array of environments, many of which are considered extremely hostile by galactic standards. Yet, in each of these places, life not only survives but thrives, including human life. Moving on to Earth's biology, Elena highlighted some of the planet's most dangerous creatures, including venomous snakes, powerful predators, and microscopic pathogens. The alien delegates seemed increasingly agitated with each example. I understand this is a lot to absorb, Elena said, her tone softening. However, it's essential to grasp that these challenges have shaped humanity. These dangers have driven our evolution, our relentless drive to survive, and our spirit of exploration. Zixlorp, who had been unusually silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke up. Dr. Vasquez, this is unprecedented. If what you say is true, how did your species ever develop spacefaring technology? Surely the constant struggle for survival would have hindered such advancements. Elena smiled, her pride evident. On the contrary, High Counselor, it was precisely because of these challenges that we advanced so rapidly. Necessity, as we say, is the mother of invention. Each obstacle we faced drove us to find new solutions and push the boundaries of what was possible. She concluded by displaying a collage of human achievements, from early tools to modern spacecraft. This is humanity's legacy. We are survivors, explorers, and innovators. We've taken the harshness of our world and turned it into a crucible for progress. The hall fell silent as the delegates absorbed this information. Gradually, a murmur of applause began to rise, which Elena's translator rendered as enthusiastic approval. Zixlorp raised all four limbs to signal silence. Dr. Vasquez, Zixlorp began, on behalf of the Galactic Scientific Council, I thank you for this enlightening presentation. It is clear that we need to reconsider our classification system and our understanding of habitable worlds. Turning to the assembly, the High Counselor proposed, in light of this new information, I suggest we establish a special committee to review and revise our world classification system. Additionally, we should consider a cultural exchange program with Earth. There is clearly much we can learn from humanity's unique experiences. A chorus of agreement rose from the delegates, and Elena felt a great weight lift from her shoulders. This response exceeded her expectations when she first raised her hand to speak. As the meeting began to adjourn and delegates gathered in excited discussion groups, Elena returned to her seat. She found herself surrounded by a diverse group of alien delegates eager to discuss her presentation. The gelatinous blobby, which had been seated next to her earlier, oozed forward, its translucent body pulsing with what Elena recognized as excitement. Human Elena, the blobby burbled, its translator struggling to keep up with its rapid speech. Your world is fascinating, terrifying, yes, but fascinating. How do you manage to sleep knowing such dangers lurk outside? Elena chuckled, causing several nearby aliens to flinch. Well, most of us live in cities where these dangers are somewhat mitigated. But honestly, it's just normal for us. We grow up learning about these threats, how to avoid them, and how to prepare for them. It's just part of life on Earth. A tall avian creature with iridescent feathers leaned in, its beak clicking rapidly. Surely you must have some fear. Even the bravest Kree warrior would tremble at the thought of such a world. Elena considered this thoughtfully. Fear, yes, we feel fear. But we've learned to channel it and use it as a motivator rather than a deterrent. Fear keeps us alert and drives us to innovate, to find solutions to problems that might otherwise seem insurmountable. The avian's feathers ruffled in a mix of awe and disbelief. Before it could respond, a new voice cut through the chatter. Dr. Vasquez, Zixlorp called, gliding gracefully through the crowd. A word, if you please. Elena excused herself and followed the High Counselor to a quieter corner of the hall. Zixlorp's antenna twitched rapidly, indicating deep thought or emotion. Your presentation has unsettled many delegates, Zixlorp began in a low voice. Some are calling for Earth to be quarantined, citing the potential dangers if humans were to spread unchecked across the galaxy. Elena shivered as a chill ran down her spine. This was precisely the kind of reaction she had feared. The counselor, Zixlorp, held up a limb to interrupt her. Please, let me finish, he said. While some may react with fear, others see potential. Your species' ability to adapt and overcome seemingly impossible odds is unprecedented in our records of galactic history. Zixlorp's compound eyes, all four of them, fixed on Elena with intense focus. I believe humanity could be a valuable asset to the galactic community. Dr. Vasquez, your unique perspective, drive to explore, and innovate are qualities we sorely need during these times of relative peace and complacency. Elena felt a wave of relief, quickly followed by curiosity. What are you proposing? She asked. High Counselor Zixlorp's antenna quivered with what Elena had learned to recognize as excitement. I am proposing a joint venture, a series of expeditions to some of the more challenging worlds in our database. These are worlds we have long considered too dangerous or difficult to explore or colonize. With human ingenuity and our combined technological resources, who knows what we might achieve? Elena's mind raced with the possibilities. This opportunity exceeded what she had hoped to achieve at the conference. That's an incredible opportunity, High Counselor. I would need to consult with my superiors, of course, but speaking personally, I think it's an excellent idea. Zixlorp made a gesture that Elena's cultural training identified as the Arachnet equivalent of a smile. Excellent. I will begin making the necessary arrangements. In the meantime, Dr. Vasquez, I believe you have more to attend to. The High Counselor gestured towards the group of delegates clustered near Elena's seat, all of whom were watching their conversation with intense interest. Elena nodded and straightened her uniform. Of course, High Counselor. As she made her way back to the group, Elena couldn't help but feel a rising sense of excitement. The conference had taken an unexpected turn, but it was one that could lead to remarkable opportunities for both humanity and the galaxy. A small, furry creature, the same one that had nearly fainted earlier, approached her hesitantly. Human Elena, it squeaked, its large eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. Is it true that your people voluntarily throw themselves off high places for fun? Elena grinned and began pulling up images of skydiving on her datapad. "Oh, you're going to love this," she said, launching into an explanation of extreme sports that would likely give the poor creature nightmares for weeks. As the day progressed, Elena fielded questions about everything from Earth's diverse ecosystems to human physiology and the intricacies of plate tectonics. Each explanation seemed to terrify and fascinate her alien audience in equal measure. One crystalline being asked with concern, "How do you cope with the constant threat of microscopic organisms invading your bodies?" Elena launched into a simplified explanation of the human immune system, marveling at how something she had always taken for granted seemed so alien to these beings. "Our bodies are constantly at war with these microorganisms," she explained. "It's a never-ending battle, but one that has made our species stronger over time." The crystalline being vibrated in what Elena assumed was a shudder. "Fascinating and horrifying," it chimed. As the official conference sessions wound down for the day, Elena was invited to a more informal gathering in one of the station's observation lounges. The room offered a breathtaking view of the surrounding space, with alien ships twinkling like stars against the backdrop of the galaxy. Zixlorp approached her, offering a drink in a gesture of friendship. "Dr. Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying a note of warmth that hadn't been there earlier, "I must admit, when I first learned that a human would be joining our council, I had my doubts. Your species is so new to the galactic stage, after all." Elena accepted the drink, sniffing it cautiously before taking a sip. It tasted like liquid starlight, if such a thing were possible. "And now, High Counselor," she asked, curious about how the day's events had changed the alien's perspective. Zixlorp waved a limb in a gesture of amusement. "Now, I find myself wondering how we ever managed without you. Your unique perspective and your species' resilience, these are qualities that could reshape our understanding of the galaxy." Elena felt a swell of pride, both for herself and for humanity as a whole. "Thank you, High Counselor. We're excited to be part of the galactic community and too." As the gathering progressed, Elena found herself deeply engaged in a spirited discussion about the potential applications of human adaptability in space exploration. Ideas were exchanged rapidly, each more intriguing than the last. One delegate, with enthusiasm visible in his animated gestures, proposed the idea of merging human survivability with Axa-Ashian terraforming technology. Another suggested combining human medical expertise with Zor's advanced regenerative techniques. Elena's mind was racing with the possibilities. This was precisely why she had joined the Earth Alliance's diplomatic corps, to bridge the gap between humanity and the broader galaxy, forging connections that could lead to groundbreaking advancements for all species. As the evening advanced and the gathering began to wind down, Elena took a moment of solitude by one of the large observation windows. She looked out at the vast expanse of space, reflecting on humanity's journey. From a planet once deemed uninhabitable by many in the galaxy, humans had not only survived but thrived. They had reached for the stars and discovered a universe teeming with life and opportunity. Now, humanity was on the brink of making significant contributions to the universe, achievements that were still beyond their imagination. Her reverie was interrupted when Zixlorp, an alien delegate with a graceful and ethereal presence, joined her by the window. The delegate's form was outlined against the backdrop of stars. "What are you thinking, Dr. Vasquez?" asked Zixlorp in a gentle voice. Elena, still gazing at the stars, responded with a smile, "I'm thinking about home, about Earth, with all its challenges and marvels. And I'm contemplating the future, what we might achieve together, humans and aliens, as we explore the mysteries of the galaxy." Zixlorp made a sound that the translator interpreted as a thoughtful hum. "Indeed," the delegate agreed. "I believe we stand at the cusp of a new era in galactic history. Humanity may well be the key to unlocking doors we never even knew existed." As they stood there, both human and alien, contemplating the infinite possibilities of space, Elena felt a profound sense of purpose. Although the conference was concluding, this was only the beginning of humanity's grand adventure among the stars. Facing the challenges ahead, Elena was confident that humanity's adaptability and resilience would see them through. The galaxy might not yet be prepared for humanity, but humanity was more than ready to embrace the galaxy. With a smile, Elena raised her glass in a silent toast to the future, a future made brighter and more promising by the events of this conference.